Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So what's on today's agenda is last winter, and pretty much every winter, I like building these gas-powered bicycle, kind of a cross between a moped and a bicycle, or a moped and a motorcycle. And I try to gray out the lines and color outside the lines too, and I'd make my own eclectic little types of bikes. And last winter was no different, but last winter was so mild. By the time that March kind of came along, it got very warm and nice weather. Didn't snow much last year, and springtime kind of came along fairly quickly. And this bike right here was under construction. And what happened was I had all mocked up and tacked, and all the pieces are built for it, or most of the pieces are built for it. And then the warm weather came along, and it just sat in pieces. There's pieces down there, pieces in that too. There's wheels over there, front end, the motor's over there. And the stuff keeps getting moved around the garage and beat up, and you know. So I want to take a little bit of time, not that I really have the time to devote to it, but I do want to take a little bit of time and put the thing back together, at least in some fashion. The thing that was holding me up, I was trying to come up with different paint color for it. What do I want to paint the frame? What do I want to paint? What I don't want to paint? And so what I decided to do was just assemble it the way it is, unpainted. And a couple of my bikes are already that way too. And just leave, for now, whatever little colors are on it. And when it fills in, we'll see how it looks. And there's nothing saying that I can't take it back apart and come up with another solution. But it may just get rubbed down with a wax of sorts and left as is, or it may not. So again, that's the decision I kind of came up with, and I figure we can start at least getting it back together and make it so it doesn't get damaged and can wheel it around, and possibly even go for a ride. Imagine that. So it was pretty good. You see, as I said, it's just, all the bits and pieces are just hidden in boxes and totes, and here's more of it over here. There's the fenders in the front end, and so it's got some new white tires to kind of go on it. I'll probably start with that part of it first. And there's the motor. Handlebars are down there. And see if we can just kind of get this thing back in some kind of something. Now I'm rambling. All right, let me get it mocked up on the stand. So I started on the back of the bike, and I swapped over, put a white tire on it and some other things. And working on the rear fender, one of the things that has to go on is the rear drive belt, and this is the one I just kind of made up when I was mocking the bike up, and it is a serpentine belt that is hooked together with like the old leather type setups on it, but we want to make it one continuous piece just so it performs better. So I had gotten a belt that's the right size, but it's too fat, so I'm going to rip it down. So I figure try sticking a razor blade and the vise. See if we can just kind of follow one groove. See if we can make a nice consistent belt, just a different length. First time I'm trying this. Seems to work pretty good though, as long as I don't start getting off kilter here. Kind of hard to glue it back together, I like the serpentine belts because they have a lot of grip to them. And I've used them on a couple of other bikes, and I've had good luck with them, so it's kind of my go-to. The one thing they don't like doing is being the you're messing up. Being the clutch, the piece that you make drive and not drive. So that could be a little bit of an issue. So I try to make the belt that comes off the motor, the one that engages and disengages your regular belt, regular V belt. Almost there. Last time I did it with scissors. It was a pain. That worked out much better. Now we got a belt that's gonna be our right width now. Remember to take that razor blade out of there. That could hurt. Alright, let me get this set up on the bike. So this is the back, and I got it in the frame in the rack, and starting to reassemble again. Like I said, I took the rear tire, it's sitting on the floor over there, and put the white ones on there. A little too white for me right now, but it'll tone down over time. And here's that belt that we just got done slicing and putting on there. And then that will be going to a jack shaft eventually. But the fender is a bicycle fender. It's got a tail light off of, I don't even remember anymore, but it kind of stayed on there. And the rim is a 24-inch bicycle rim as the sheave, and then it's got two 26-inch rims welded together with one side sliced off to give the rim a more masculine style of a bicycle instead of the standard bicycle rim, which is a bit anemic. So I wanted to go with something to you know, instead of the tire looking like this, now it looks much bigger because the rim is puffed out that much more. So that was the goal in doing that, and I think it does it quite well. And then what attaches the sheave to the rim is silver dollars, just for something different. And those guys are riveted into place, and they're bent on the press. Kicked them out so that the rim clears, the drive belt clears the tire, so that it kind of kicks it out just a little bit. And of course everything else I get kicked out because of it too. The fender, the frame. See, the frame is kicked out and drawn back in again over here. Kicked out, drawn back in, and then I beefed it up by adding a little bit more support to it. And there's that belt that's the eventually going to go to the jack shaft right here. So reflectors beat. I was going to start chasing one down, put it on when I had it, but I figured I'm going to wait until the bike's together and start changing some of those detail-oriented pieces, because it's a lot easier to do when the bike is complete and see what you do and don't like, instead of trying to figure that out now. You can get rid of it altogether, I don't know. Put a license plate there. So that's where that is. I think the next step I'm going to do is, here it is. Here's all the parts. This is a kickstand, and it's meant to mimic like a motorcycle rear center stand that would flip down, lock into place, and then you hit a lever and it would flip back up. But of course it's built with butter knives. Got wrenches on the bottom of it, a couple of sockets, a couple of nuts for the supports, but that needs to be welded up further. Right now, again, everything was just kind of tacked together. So I'm going to take a few minutes, I'm going to go beef that stuff up, make it a little bit more sturdy and grind that up, and then we'll get that mounted on the back of it. So let me get that taken care of. Starting to get a little long now, huh? It is a nice long bike. Back's again, everything kind of, you gotta kind of throw it together, but then, you know, take it apart as you put other pieces on and align and adjust. But we're getting there. That belt looks like it does pretty good. Stuck the front end on there. It's got a set of salad tongs, whatever you want to call them, cut up, and they're the fender mounts in the front. And then this was a aluminum front end that somebody gave me at one of the car shows who watched me build my other bikes, and I modified that. It was much longer. It was like a chopper front end, and I shrunk it down and kicked the wheel out on this side. You see it's bent out. I'll show you what that's for in a little bit. And I'm changing the tire on the front, so I figure I show the rim too. So again, it's two rims put together. You can see it's got two protectors on it, spoke protectors on it. This rim is a heavy duty, like a lawn cart style rim. Still a 26-inch, but you can see the hub is really beefy on the thing, and the spokes are really beefy. There's no adjustment as far as tweaking the spokes, but again, it was very straight. So we just cut the lip off of one of the rims, and then they're welded together to give you, that aspect there. So there's still a rib on the inside. I put 2 tubes in it, and one fits in each one, and kind of a run flat situation. The air goes out of one, the other one will still kind of hold it. But you can tweak it a little bit. Kind of like you can make the tire, favor one side or the other by tweaking with the tire pressures. And then this rim right here, this one is the front brake, and that is a baby carriage rim with a little white tire would have been on it. Ripped the white tire off and welded that to it also. And again, I'll show that in a little while. So let me get a white tire on that one, and we'll get that one filled back up and stick it on the front. There you go. Looking pretty good. The tires need to kind of sit with air in for a little bit. I gotta deflate them and refill them up again. Got a little bit of run out. The rims are nice and true though. And it's got a leaf spring. Suspension is a leaf spring off of a trailer. It was in a free pile on the side of the road. So I cut that out of there. I wanted to make it like a Springer front end. And I forget what these were cut out of. They were, I think they were handles from a fire poker set, the tool set that sits alongside a fireplace. And I just made some rockers up, and then the rod ends out of a, I think it was a go-kart front end for the bottom, so that that part can pivot. And then just made some brass bushings in the top side up there. So it looks pretty good. Hard part's getting the rim, welding the rim on and having the rim be true. You see the little carriage wheel on the back side there is pretty steady. Even these too, trying to weld 2 of them together, and you don't look down the side of it and you see it, kind of doing one of these. So I made it spacers when I tacked it together. So again, I'm going to chase hardware after I kind of get it together and change out some brass stuff. I'm doing a little bit as I kind of go along. You can kind of see, you got some there, but I'd like to probably change that over to like a castle nut or something, So what do I want to do next? I'll probably do the motor last after I get the bike on the bench, get it off of here, because eventually it's going to get pretty heavy. Maybe the handlebars. Maybe we'll start with that part of it. Find out in a second, won't we? Get done welding up the handlebars. Stuck them on there, but it's got some heebie-jeebies on it. If you guys ever used any of this, this is a roll-lock wheel or flapper disc. A bunch of names for them. They are got quick connect. The only problem with these on this type of setup, the big grinders are fine. The big, electric 4-inch, 4.5-inch grinders are fine. Is that when you let off the throttle on these have a tendency at full speed to unhook themselves and go shooting across the floor. So you gotta kind of want to let off on them while you're still on the metal. Let me grab my gloves. Let's do a little cleanup. Grinder what is it saying? The grinder is great for the welder I ain't. Something like that. See what I mean? And it's off and running. Let's try it again on the other side. Or you can just drop it on the floor too. Kind of like being at the dentist's office, ain't it? Pain's not as bad though. Yeah, so it's like the next day. Not quite sure where I let off, but it's getting there. The white of the tires is way too white for me. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna try to tone them down with I may try staining them with maybe used motor oil, maybe old coffee, something like that. Kind of make them a little bit more yellowish, dingy, aged looking, appropriate instead of the shiny white that they are. They also had a label on them, which was way too modern. I think it was probably like 280 grit or something. I kind of went over real quick and it seemed like it was rubbing off fairly well. Of course, it's got fingerprints all over it now, but that's for later on. As far as color, again, we're still kind of reassembling. I think I'm kind of leaning more towards maybe ratty and leaving all the components of whatever colors they are. So with that, I have not decided, and again, I'm going to continue to assemble it, but I have some other things to work on. So I think I just want to reassemble it quickly, you know, just kind of bolt the pieces up just so I don't lose any of the stuff, and maybe stare at it over the next week or so and pick away at it here and there. But I'm starting to think I may take hydrogen peroxide, which rusts metal, and put it in a spray gun so that when you pull the trigger, it gives a real fine mist, and I may mist over it and kind of let the frame go to rust. And when that happens, it'll make all the pieces that are chrome and whatnot not rust and stand out, because there's like sockets welded on and that kind of thing. So I think it'll make that stuff pop a little bit more. So the socket there, there's a wrench there, and you know, again, there's a bunch of stuff that's not even on it yet, but you know, you get the idea. And then maybe it'll probably look like it was a red bike that just got all rusty, but the red kind of stays in the rust. That's it. Pedals, I had some cool pedals I picked up at a swap meet or a yard sale. They're cheap, they're like $5. I'm like, awesome. The only problem is, if it shows, they're both rights. And right and left, one of them has a reverse thread. I think it's the left pedal has a reverse thread on it, so these will not thread onto one side of the crank. So you can't, I can put one on, but I can't put both on. So I freed up the other ones the best I can, shot oil in them. They were seized up tight. That one's a little growly, huh? That's that guy. Put the fire extinguisher. That's the fire extinguisher is the exhaust. I had to go drill out the holes up inside here for give them a place to exit. But that worked out okay. Jack shafts on. Kickstand's on. Kickstand got welded up and beefed up before I put it on. And of course that flips up to the rear fender when you're not using it. Put the luggage rack on. Hit them with a wire wheel. Kind of let them go darky. Same with the seat. Kind of hit it with a wire wheel. Knocked off some of the heavy rust. I'll probably oil that. So I'm thinking that between the pieces like this, the leaf spring in the front, and then if I let the frame rust and then oil it so it goes that dark color, you know, kind of, you know, like this, but again with oil on it, it might be a good look. Just not sure. That's the biggest struggle I have with working on doing this stuff at all, is always trying to match the colors up. So anyway, that's gonna go on the side of my head. And clean the motor up, put it in a parts washer. I figure we'll let it show the army green that it is, military green. I was kind of wondering why we were having a problem with the idling last time. You guys can see that. The gasket's hanging out in the carburetor. It's a slight intake leak. That'd be an issue. So again, I'm gonna go take it and just kind of bolt stuff up fairly quickly, put them into place. I kind of need that too anyway to figure out where all the belts and everything have to go, because you got to kind of start from the motor to this pulley. This whole assembly can move in and out, up, down, and then you want to adjust the tension on the belt, and then the belt has to come around and you got to adjust the tension on the chain. So you have to kind of work with all of them at the same time to be able to get you got to tweak everything to get it right into place. Probably the best way to say it. Chain's just sitting on there. I gotta see how many links I want to take out of that, but again, I don't want to do that until I figure out where that wheel's going to be positioned. Cranks together. So that's where we are. I'll turn you back on when I get a bunch of stuff thrown on. We'll get a better idea what it looks like. So that's it. I got no more pile of parts on the floor, which is a good thing. Tired of stepping over them and worried about damaging and losing and stuff. So it's all just kind of thrown back together, except for the back wheel and the front wheel assembly. But the motor and the pulleys and everything are just kind of sitting in there with loose hardware. And I want to take my time in doing this and not doing it in a rush. It's more for, you know, it's not a job. The idea is to do it for pleasure and being creative. And I felt like I was just kind of pushing to get it all back together real fast. So I figure we got all the bits and pieces together except for what's in that little plastic bag on the bench. And I'll take a couple of pictures of it probably and put it on my computer in the evening and maybe stare at them a little bit and try to come up with different solutions or different theories of how I want to go and assemble it. It's got the handbrake on the front. It's got kind of like a hillbilly handbrake, which is, this is copper, brass, copper. A copper band with leather on the front attached to it. And then that goes down and will create drag when you pull on it for a front brake, and that uses a bicycle chain and then goes to a pair of pliers. I guess you can get it up on there. So when you hit the brakes, it works to hit the lever, it works the front brakes. And of course it's got front suspension, but I worked it out where as that pivots, the point never changes on this. It always stays the same tension. So it's not like you're going to hit the brakes, it's going to dive and tighten the brakes up even tighter. It just stays the same through the motion of it. So that worked out pretty good. What else we got? We got the little coffee can headlight, and that will flip open. You just put a battery in it to work that, and then the on and off switch is up on top. Gas tanks in, gas lines on, motors on, guards in place. This was the fan off of, this originally was a APU unit, which is, I'm trying to think what the initials stand for. Somebody will tell me. It's a standby little 24 volt, 28 volt DC generator that kept the old military planes ready to bug out. Their so-called electronics in the 40s were antiquated. They took a long time to heat up and become functional. So what they did was, instead of letting the plane run, they would just let that little motor run on the ground and leave it powered up all the time so that they can take off real quick. Anyway, that's the engine out of it, and this is the fan that was on the side of the engine. It actually sat right here in this section, and it will blow air across the motor. I sliced it in half and I tapped it into place on the cylinder heads, and I figure we're going to kind of use it for a big aluminum heat diffuser to come off the top. Plus I thought it looked pretty cool. Chain guard, seat's a shovel that was carved up. It was a square shovel, but I kind of copied the look of a regular bicycle seat and took the regular bicycle seat guts underneath it. This is a hoe, a little like garden hoe that you have in your hand. And, you know, the fingers would be bent like that. I heated them up and stretched them out, and there's the handle of it. and just bolted them back in. It kind of works like a little luggage rack. I think I already said the fire extinguisher is the exhaust, and then we got the flexible copper pipe is coming out of the head, wrapping around for the exhaust. This was a pull start from something, and it works now as a chain guard for the pulleys. It's missing all the spacers and everything. And then, of course, the shifter. The linkage goes across, start there. And grabs that corner, lifts up on that guy, and that will tension the belt and be your drive. It's got a wrench down below over there. And it's offset. It's a timing belt adjuster, so you can adjust the tension on this if you need to by rotating that and locking it back down. You can see the bolts off center. I think that's it. Doorknob for the gas cap. And this was a Aaron's snowblower. This was the drive mechanism, where I think it might have been the shifter, first, second, third gear, go down to reverse for there. So right now it's going to be pretty much that, and then up however many clicks till you get tension on the belt, and you can dial it in. And it's adjustable there, adjustable there, adjustable there. But that's the stuff I have to set up, all the spacings of everything and kind of dial them in. And it was kind of hard to do when you only had one piece on at a time, so that's why I threw everything on it. And I got all the parts out of harm's way. Same thing with this. All this has to be tweaked and adjusted and put into place. Figure out where it's going to go, figure out what we're going to use for hand grips. And the only other thing I think that needs to be made up for it yet is a throttle. It's not made up, but we're not quite sure what we got going on for our carburetor yet. When the last thing I left off was having problems with trying to get it to idle correctly, but obviously that gasket sticking out of there is causing a major intake leak. So there's a spoof on my end. And I did order a carburetor kit for this, and one of my YouTubers actually hooked me up with that. Huck up in Canada, I think he's in Canada. Yeah, he's in Canada. Does a lot of chainsaw stuff and small engine two-stroke stuff. He had mailed me a carburetor that was this engine was set up just to run at 1 RPM, and that's it. Whatever it was, like say 3600, it would just run at 3600. Didn't have an idle circuit in it. The carburetor that was originally on it didn't have an idle circuit in, and he mailed me the one from, I'm not sure if it was a chainsaw in itself, but it had the capacity of doing that, and that's where this came from. But it needed a float or something, and I did end up scoring in the bag the kit for it, and so that still has to get torn apart and addressed and fixed yet anyway. So that's that. We'll continue on this one. There's 2 feet of snow outside, and I'm relaxed and just stuck inside the house. We'll just kind of keep whittling away on this. On that note, figure we'll shut you down again. Thanks everybody for watching, comment, subscribing, and hopefully this one will be putting around coming spring.